Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Remember, we're a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey, and we're going to bring you amazing guests with amazing stories and experts in their field. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching us, and if you're listening to us, make sure you follow us on your podcast provider. So today we are speaking to Claire. How are you doing, Claire? You okay?
Hey, Stuart. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining me. We've been having conversations about getting this done for a couple of weeks now, and I've had the privilege of working alongside Claire in the last couple of months, and it was a no-brainer to ask you to come on and add your story, your perspectives on leadership. So without further ado, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself. So for the people who don't know who you are, as I hit the 20-minute timer, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and what you're doing.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm Clare Griffiths and I'm a 5-time Paralympian in wheelchair basketball. I played from Sydney through to the Rio Paralympic Games, with Rio really being our highlight, finishing 4th, playing in our first ever medal match at Paralympic Games. Not quite getting to wear the medal kit, unfortunately, but hugely enjoyable experience being out there competing at that level. Alongside being a wheelchair basketball athlete, for many years I worked in leadership development and both facilitating and consulting in that space, as well as running my own wheelchair basketball events for companies. So it's been a really nice match for me as an athlete to develop a career alongside trying to be a full-time athlete but needing to earn money. And the two connected really nicely. I learned a lot about performance along the way by telling my story, the latest update of our successes or failures in wheelchair basketball. And as I would tell clients these stories, I'd be going, oh, that's a really good point, and just learning performance along the way. And I think I probably got more out of it sometimes than they did in the room. But it's been a great place to develop in this space.
Yeah, amazing. You've just made me laugh, because sometimes I soften the room. I say I'm here to learn just as much as you are, because I'm really interested in what when we go into different sectors, and I love the stories, and obviously the podcast, I love stories. It goes without saying. So obviously we're Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind? What comes to mind when you just hear the word leadership?
Yeah, I think for me at the moment, I think leadership's probably a really tough place to be in the current climate. I'm seeing it from, like, for instance, with my husband. It's a really tough place to be with this new post-COVID world of what people are trying to deliver. I think there's a huge thing around how leaders currently look after themselves, and the needing to be really resilient and look after themselves and mental health, and just that whole piece around it about delivering performance when you're juggling 50 million balls. I've gone on a leadership journey within elite sport that's taught me so much, and at times pressure so high that what do you take from that? And those are definitely some of the biggest lessons I've learned. But yeah, currently in that leadership space, what is on people's shoulders, I just think is a lot more than just leading organisations at the moment.
Yeah, I love that. It's the more holistic, dare I say, that there's so many elements to it, which is, like I said, sometimes can be overwhelming. So staying with you personally, we always ask people, where do you think your leadership journey started? So whether it's on reflection or there was a light bulb moment at the time, how far back are we going?
Quite a long way. I think there's something in my competitive nature that has me wanting to succeed, and therefore alongside that wanting others around me to succeed. And my background in team sport definitely links into this journey of leadership, and probably about the age of 13, 14, wanting to be the captain of the hockey team at school. We were successful, we were high performing, wanting to be a key part of that success, and seeing that leading the team in some way would be part of that journey for me. And going on, and not long after my accident, someone turning around to me when I was really early days in the national team saying, well, you'll be the captain of this team one day, which is what I went on to do. But yeah, really young age, that competitiveness, I think, coming through in that just desire to win
Yeah, so almost that desire that then sought out the leadership roles for you, like showing that
Yeah,
determination. You think that's what it was?
yeah, definitely. I think I saw success as more than just that individual performance, that I could go out and play the best within my control, but actually can you start to influence some of the people around you to succeed as well, and loving to see other people perform around me. And a huge part of that for me is within elite sport, but the joy of someone else on the team having a great game and what you might have done to help them be in the right frame of mind, that little word you have. Even now I'm playing a little bit of basketball again now, and I really enjoy, can you be that leader to someone, like in a completely unofficial route, just as a senior player, through your experience, that helps them get their head in the right place to perform when it matters.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I can tell just listening to you speak about it, the listeners will know that how passionate you are of getting that right. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So we asked people about an influence that they've had on their, or an external influence they've had on their leadership journey. So whether it's positive or negative, whether it's an experience or a role or a person, what do you think's had a really big impact on your leadership journey?
So I had working alongside me in the run into the London 2012 Games an assistant coach who was very good at reading me and giving me feedback. And she was a Paralympic gold medalist on the US basketball team, very experienced, had been on a journey with that team. And one bit of feedback she gave me, which I use and go back to and share with people, is this importance as a leader of being able to control your emotions, about how close to that kind of central line you can keep, so you're not doing these massive peaks and troughs when you're performing. And it's not about not sort of celebrating successes along the way, and it's not about recognizing when things need improvement, but it's how level can you keep yourself so that you're not taking your team on this peaks and troughs, which is exhausting. Even if it's high and it's success, it's that ability to control it. And she was quite a big influence on me in that run up to 2012 Games, which was a huge pressure situation, and was we got so much wrong. We didn't perform in London, and it was such a shame. It was a home game, so we probably had the best opportunity of going out there and really stamping our mark on wheelchair basketball in the world. But we weren't in the right performance environment. And as a captain, the biggest lessons I learned around that was the mistakes I made, mistakes of we were under pressure, we weren't in the right environment. And in trying to protect the team, I just kind of ramped up my own values. So where I really value determination and hard work and that passion side, I just focused on that. If I work harder, if I try harder, if I get the team working harder, we will succeed. And actually, when you look at your values as a leader, when do your values, which are who you are and give you all the success that you have, when are they the worst thing you can have because you turn the dial up too far? And I think I didn't respect differences within the team, that different people needed a different environment or different things within it. You know, those values, where do people need space? Where do people need something different? And it's not one answer fits all. And it was horrible coming off the back of those games. Like, I was struggling. I was probably depressed. I was like, we put it out there. We're going to win a gold medal. We're going to be right up there. And we genuinely thought we could really succeed. And we got there, and it was awful. And you come away from that and you think, well, I failed as a leader because I was in this position where I was trying to protect the team from a coach that was struggling, a coach who wasn't well. And as a result, he was dialing up the worst parts of him and the value and the things that he goes to when it's not right. And what I didn't focus on was my resilience and getting everything in, kind of all those things you need in place that allow you to be resilient, which is eating well, sleeping well, focusing on what makes you happy, that you enjoy it, that's fun. And off the back of those games, I really focused on, if I don't want to feel like a failure. I felt like a failure off it. And you put all those years into performing at the highest level. And actually to go out then at that point and say, I'm not stepping away from this sport. I want us to succeed. I want to come away feeling like I've left a legacy. And 4 years later, when we finished fourth, and I wasn't the captain, but I was a senior leader within the team, actually, it was fun. I enjoyed it. And the goals I set myself going into that competition were very different than the ones I set going into London in 2012.
Yeah, amazing. I love that, because there's so many things popping in my head when people say about stepping into flow. For example, flow is a big word, isn't it, about it, especially in sports, but then we try and transfer it into the workplace, about that burning the candle at both ends, and people are doing really well and making it look easy. And then you actually think dialing it up is a way to then get there. And it's obviously not. You just explained a great example of why it isn't. So I'm really interested in your perspective of the corporate world, because obviously you've come from sport. You're still, we had a chat about this when we saw each other last week, you're still stepping back into sport, which is brilliant. What are some of your observations, perspectives of the corporate world, and what sort of things have you been able to share across into that world? Because obviously a lot of our audience are in the corporate world. And what sort of things have worked and have had a big impact, and maybe some things that might have surprised you that they're quite similar?
Yeah, and I think, so I've been working with businesses since 2005 regularly, and some things around sharing my story, and it gives people reflection moments, and it doesn't need to be sport for them, but when's the time that you have got your values wrong, or you know, like I just talked about, dialing them up too far. And sometimes I think bringing a story from sport can give the clarity, and it can be quite a defined moment because it's a bit more focused, and so it gives people those examples that suddenly they can make that click. Oh yes. But so many of the stories I tell will also be about life and life experiences, and that just that reflection space for people that triggers that moment for them. I think within the corporate world there are so many overlaps without trying to oversimplify it. And at times people can go, oh well, it's easy to set yourself a goal that's win a gold medal. Our goals are far more complicated, which to a point is true, but actually the methods that are used that can provide people with clarity, that for instance connect the motives for people between what they're doing every day and why they're doing it, are the same. Because whether you're aiming for a gold medal, if you haven't got clear vision, you'll be pulling in a slightly different direction. It's not efficient. If you haven't got aligned goals, you'll be working really hard, but maybe not in the right way. If it's not connected as a team, if you haven't got those relationships, and it's not about being people's friends, but it's about developing respect and understanding and connections as a team. And one thing a coach of ours talked about was shared life experience. So we would take time to have shared life experience as athletes together. And how does that transfer into that space? And that might be a leadership development course within an organisation, or it might be just that we take some time to have a coffee and a coaching conversation with someone, and that it's not about just giving people the answers all the time, but can we create that environment where we ask questions and we inquire and we encourage innovation. And I think that can be something that sport's good at, because if you do what you did last year, this year at a competition, you won't be higher up the rankings. You just won't, because it's so fast paced and changing. And so if we can start to bring some of those things across, what's your equivalent in your business, in your site, with your people, that is about innovation? What does it need to be? What does it need to look like? And if that's for you, so you start to make those connections for people. And I love it. I love learning from other sectors, from other businesses. I've worked across every sector going. When I look back at the list of companies over the years that I've worked with, it's really enjoyable. And and these funny stories that you go in on a site to deliver a speech to a company, and you've got to sign away your life before you enter the site because of the health and safety regulations that they have, or the next one that's just completely the other end of the scale. And it's really interesting that you can work across such a vast range of sectors and range of companies in so many different ways, but there's so many similarities. I don't think often you'll hear a sector say, oh, this is just what we're like in media, for instance, because I'm touching the media world, doing some commentary now. And you're like, no, you're not any different to other organisations. It just comes across in a slightly different way, but everyone has very similar challenges.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And yeah, there's so many. It's the variety, isn't it, and the flexibility of. But then, like you said, the fundamentals are pretty much the same, give or take a few. I love that. So we've got 5 minutes left. We're going to be, it's exciting because obviously working in high performance and working with senior leadership teams, we have some amazing people to put in front of people to speak. And obviously you are one now, but you've got a quite unique, quite amazing experience, let's say. I'm going to let you explain it fully, that you can bring to the forefront of really taking people outside their comfort zone, getting people to change their perspective, all those sort of things. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do in the wheelchair basketball into the corporate world?
Yeah, so I've been running it as an activity within leadership development, within team development for 17 years now, and it just lands brilliantly. It's kind of, forget the diversity and inclusion piece of it. It's a wheelchair, yes, but it's a piece of sports equipment. And what's nice about it is that we are, it just creates a level playing field. Very few people will ever have sat in a wheelchair, and even fewer will have sat in a sports chair. And we bring sports chairs for people to have a go, and in a couple of hours take people on a journey from never having sat in a chair. And it's interesting the emotional journey people go on in that time, from should I be in it? Oh, come on, yeah, I want to have a go. Or there's the whole spectrum. I'm quite nervous because it's different and I've not done this before, through to playing matches at the end of the couple of hours, scoring baskets, playing as a team. Everyone that goes on it, you can see them like just trying to work out how to push the chair and control it at the start. And then you throw a basketball in the mix and they suddenly don't have to think about pushing anymore because they've got to try and move the chair and the ball at the same time. But it's more than about playing basketball, because that's just the tool that we use to enable conversations around coaching, around leadership, around developing teams. And there's a fun element to it that's really important, because those shared life experiences that I talked about before, people talk about having played it years later, and if you cross paths with someone that's done it, oh yeah. And in the run up to 2012, so many of the people that did it as an activity with me got tickets to watch wheelchair basketball in London. And I bumped into people there when I was in the arena to watch like our men's team performing. Probably about 10 people I bumped into who'd got tickets, and it was all off the back of, I enjoyed doing this activity so much. I got so much from it. I want to come and experience seeing this sport and really, see it at its highest level. So as an activity, it's just really nice way of breaking down some barriers, enabling conversations in a fun environment that people just haven't done before. And I've yet to have a group that at the end of it, my goal at the start of every session is that people enjoy themselves, have fun, and come off at the end of it with a smile on their faces. You can't get people out of the wheelchairs at the end of the session. They was like, oh, can we just push it to the van? And when I say push it, they mean sit in it, because they want to get every millisecond. Can we do an extra hour? Because they enjoy the activity to that level. And we've run it with groups of the size of 6 or 8, right through to, 200 I ran once across 3 different basketball courts. And oh my goodness, the logistics for that were crazy. But it's just a fantastic activity for connecting people, shared experience, and we can bespoke it to whatever people need it to have in it.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of a real hard example of somebody that took something that they could implement in their business from doing that sort of session?
Yeah. So one thing people always comment about is the effectiveness of communication. And especially when they're doing something new, is people go quiet and silent and heads down and don't connect. And during the session, I always get them to set goals around their performance. What does success look like, and how are they going to do it? And get them to reflect back on through the session, not just at the end, about whether they're on target. And one thing that always comes up is their effective communication, and they will go back to it and they say, we're not communicating. And then as people become more confident, you see them using language in a different way to connect with each other. And so that for me probably is one of the ones that comes up most times from groups when we reflect back. But we very much connect it back into, so what have you taken from today that leads back into your business world? And we get such a variety of just at times really strong reflections on, I'm going to go and do this with my team, not the activity necessarily, but these behaviors, we're missing this, we're not, whether it is communication, whether it is working as a team, whether it is playing to their strengths, recognizing who brings key strengths to a team, and let's focus on that. And are we missing something, and how can people share that knowledge within a team? These are all the sorts of conversations that come off the back of it.
Yeah, amazing. And it's perfect timing. I was worried about trying to get everything into 20 minutes. That's us done 20 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's going to be really impactful. And I always say this at the end of every episode. So guys, if you're listening or watching, please send us messages. Tell us the bits that you got from that. I'm really excited to share and work together with you in the future, offering this to our clients. And thank you so much for your time. I knew this was going to be a fun conversation, and it always goes quicker when it's like there's a bit of structure in there. So ladies and gents, if you've enjoyed that, make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on your podcast provider, because guess what? Every Wednesday at 6 a.m. we have an amazing guest to come and share their expertise or their story. And that leaves me to just say thank you so much for your time today, Claire.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And ladies and gents, we'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye.